shortly after the U.S. elections. Expect world financial turmoil and the world markets to crash. Before we start, please look close to the chart on the right. This is a very important chart pattern. It is called a rising wedge. It is a bearish pattern with lines sloping up with a narrowing channel uptrend. Participants are complacent as the immediate uptrend continues to grind, but they don't notice the narrowing channel. As the trend lines get closer to convergence, a violent sell-off forms, collapsing prices through the lower trend line, triggering longs to panic sell as a downtrend forms. Please remember this precise chart pattern. And next, let's look at some historic stock market crashes. We start with the great crash of 1987. What do you see? A rising wedge. What happened when the lower channel of the rising wedge broke? The US stock markets plunged 37%. Next, let's look at one of the greatest stock crashes in history, the crash of 1929. Notice that once the lower channel broke, the US stock market plunged nearly 50%. Now, let's look at this chart pattern and compare it to present day. Let's start with Australia. What do you see? A rising wedge. Notice Australia currently sits on the lower channel of the wedge. Australia is about to crash. Next, let's look at Brazil. Brazil also has formed a rising wedge. It sits near the lower channel. When this lower channel breaks, expect Brazil to crash. Next, we look at Japan. Japan also has a rising wedge. Japan currently, in the month of October, trades right on the wedge. When the lower channel breaks, Japan will crash. Next, we look at Switzerland. Switzerland also has a rising wedge. Switzerland also is trading at the lower channel. And when this lower channel breaks, Switzerland too will crash. Next, we look at Canada, the Toronto Stock Exchange. You'll notice also a rising wedge. And the Toronto Stock Exchange currently trades on the lower channel. When that channel breaks, the Toronto stock market will crash. Next, we look at the United States, the strongest of all the markets. You will notice the United States stock market also has a rising wedge. The US market still has a little ways to go before the channel breaks, but when this channel breaks, the United States stock market too will crash. Now, we look at Germany. Germany's chart is actually foreshadowing what's about to happen to the rest of the world. You will notice Germany also has a rising wedge chart pattern. However, it broke in September, and as of October, the second month now, it trades below the lower channel support line. Germany is about to crash. Next, let's look at the Chinese stock market. But before we look at present day, let's compare China's stock market to the United States stock market in the prior crash in the year 2007. In October, the Chinese stock market and the Dow and the world stock markets topped in October. Following the top, the markets began to fall. You will notice, as the United States was falling, so too was China. However, in January, China broke a support line and crashed. Following the January crash, the Chinese stock market continued to crash for months, while the United States stock market was holding up. It stayed above the support line until June of 2008, when the US stock market broke support and crashed. After the break, the US stock market began to plunge, also with China. The big difference between the two charts is very specific. China's stock market began to crash in January, while the US stock market began to crash in June, 5 months later. Why is this important? Because I'm going to show you China's stock market present day. Next, here's China's stock market. What do you see? A rising wedge. However, like Germany, China broke the wedge 4 months ago. China is leading the stock crash, followed by Germany. However, China's market is going to continue to crash. Many might say that during the world stock market crash, the US dollar might be a safe haven, as it was in the year 2007, 2008. Before you consider that statement to be true, let's look at the chart. And what do you see? The US Federal Reserve note, the dollar, too, is in a rising wedge. The US dollar broke channel support in April of 2017. The US dollar is in a down cycle. The US dollar will continue to crash with the world stock markets. There is one other very important chart pattern to look at. It is called a double top. It is an important price pattern which forms with price reversing at least twice at roughly the same price level. A completed double top signifies that traders have tried to at least twice move price through a given price level and have failed, ending with exhaustion of buying, followed by a violent sell-off as longs panic sell. In a video on October 4th, we stated the US stock markets begin to crash on the 4th of October. Next, let's look at the US stock markets. Notice that in January of this year, the US markets put in a top. What happened? The first rising wedge broke. The US markets found support at 23,500. It landed there 3 times, possibly 4, and then reversed to form what? Again, another rising wedge chart pattern. Notice what happened on the 3rd of October. The US markets put it on exact top, and as stated in our video on the 4th of October, a crash cycle begins. And notice what happened. 2 weeks ago, in October, the US markets broke the channel support line of the rising wedge and plunged. The US stock markets have now formed a double top. In addition, the US stock markets have broken now through 2 lower rising wedge support channels. The US stock markets are now set to crash. Before they crash, the first target, once again, will be approximately the 23,500 range. Once this breaks, there will be no additional support. The Dow will plunge minimum to 20,400 range, a 24% crash. The next target is 18,000 on the Dow, a 30% crash. It could go lower. Regardless of the crash level, the dates here are critical. So to those who are traders, we specifically provide the dates to our subscribers provided within the Bitcoin index. But know that regardless whether you're a trader or not, being in the stock markets now is extremely dangerous. Lastly, please take the time, watch our prior videos, specifically the one titled World Financial Reset. In that video, we describe God's 4 seasons. The first season has come to a completion. The world is presently in the second season, fall. Fall ends on the 20th of December. Prior to the 20th of December, great evil will be uncovered at the highest levels of power in America. Before the end of this month, October, the doors will close to our old world, resulting in earth-changing rains, earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, just like in the days of Noah. Notice that the midterm elections come approximately 1 week after the doors close to the old world. Expect incredible changes come the month of November. Expect world turmoil. Expect a November world market crash. Expect a Black Friday event. November will shock the world. Please note, as of the date of this video, October 21st, we are 10 days away from month end. Please make sure you have your ark of safety ready, which includes silver and or gold, food and water, and yes, most importantly, your faith in God the Father and His Son, Jesus, for we live in biblical times. And in biblical times, the greatest wealth transfer in human history is about to unfold, with a surprise gold and silver rush, the likes of which the world has never seen before. Gold and silver are about to explode before year end. In addition to gold, Bitcoin too will explode, with many cryptocurrencies. And please note, after a world financial reset, a new era of time begins in winter. Winter begins on December 21st of 2018. Expect in 2019 a new monetary system. The paper monetary system we currently live in dies in fall. Expect a new political system. The two-party system dies this fall. Expect new energy. Newly discovered free energy will be released next year, 2019. Expect much, much more. We live in biblical times. In closing,